the biggest accidental nuclear event in history. 30 deaths in 3 months. Thousands of cancer patients. But the true impact of this terrible disaster is still unknown. From 1922 to 1991, Ukraine was under the direct jurisdiction of the Soviet Union. In 1981, with the demands of the ever-growing communist population, the Soviet government devised the 11th Five-Year Plan, an idea that would see 8 nuclear power plants built in Ukraine. Chernobyl was one of these plants. When designing these plants, the Soviet Union used RBMK reactors, which feature a number of design and safety flaws, one of the main ones being that there was no containment structure, designed to keep the highly flammable graphite moderator encased in layers of concrete and steel in the event of an explosion, a feature which in hindsight could have proven to be the value of thousands of lives. On Saturday the 8th of April 1986, a routine system test was happening in Reactor 4 of the Chernobyl plant. At 1:23 p.m, a massive power surge caused an emergency shutdown. During this shutdown, an even bigger spike caused the reactor to explode. The highly dangerous graphite moderator consequently set alight when it came into contact with the air. This released radioactive smoke into the atmosphere. Around 5% of the radioactive core was released into the atmosphere. This is about 400 times more radiation than released in the Hiroshima atomic bombing. The disaster was also contributed to by the workers at Chernobyl, with the International Nuclear Safety Report saying the poor quality of operating procedures and instructions put a heavy burden on the operating crew. Control room layout made it difficult to detect unsafe reactor conditions, however operating rules were violated. Pripyat, a city just 3 kilometers away from the plant. A whole city is silent and abandoned 26 years after the disaster, with belongings left to rust away in the toxic air. The night of the 26th of April was very different for the residents. They slept blissfully unaware that just 3 kilometers away, a nuclear power station was leaking lethal radioactive substances into the atmosphere. Some fell ill with headaches or fits of coughing and vomiting, but nothing enough for people to think that something was wrong. After all, if there was, their government would tell them, right? After 36 hours, the Soviet government announced an evacuation to the city and all residents living within 30 kilometers of the Chernobyl power plant. The subsequent weeks after this, around 67,000 people were evacuated. On the 28th of April, over 1,000 kilometers away at the Forsmark nuclear plant in Sweden, a radiation alarm went off, showing the radiation levels to be far higher than normal. The Soviet Union finally admitted to the accident. Within 3 months, 30 people had died from acute radiation poisoning, all of them reactor staff and emergency workers. Years on, we are seeing the effect of Chernobyl firsthand. It still affects Europe as harshly as it did in 1986. Cancer and mutations, just some of the horrific side effects of the radiation. Yet, as part of the death toll, the Soviet government claimed only 30 people had died as a direct cause of the radiation, and a further 15 had died from thyroid cancer affected by the radiation.
Well, my family is like farmers, and so all of their crops were destroyed, and like thousands of people's crops were destroyed, that they had no money, that they couldn't like live basically. So like a lot of people died because of that not a lot of people know about. And you know, if there's no farming, there's no food, and if there's no food, you can't live. You know, I think it's really affected us, and every year, like the Ukrainian community in England holds remembrance for them, so that we won't forget, because it's so easy to forget things that happened in the past. But this is such a big disaster. It deserves people actually remembering it and remembering what happened to every single person.
Several studies found that thyroid cancer has sharply risen in Belarus, Ukraine, and Russia since the disaster. The International Atomic Energy Agency stated that there are 1,800 documented cases of thyroid cancer in children who were 0 to 14 years of age when the disaster occurred, which is far higher than normal. A 2006 report by the World Health Organization predicted that only 9,000 would die as a result of the accident. This report has come under massive scrutiny, as it is suggested that the research was not in depth enough to assess the full scale of the disaster. Other independent reports, such as the 2006 Torch Report, says that an estimated 30,000 to 60,000 excess cancer deaths, and a Greenpeace report claims that 270,000 cases of cancer would link to the disaster.
I think that they didn't do the best job that they could, because I have a Ukrainian family, so when we heard about it, we were really worried. They didn't evacuate the people quick enough, I think personally, and they didn't use safe reactors or anything. And I think they knew what might happen and they didn't plan according to that.
Around 6,000 children each year in Ukraine are born with congenital heart defects. This hasn't yet been researched in depth and has not been proven, although many scientists and foundations believe Chernobyl to be the cause. In the years after the disaster, there was an increase in children born with deformities in Ukraine and Belarus. However, the Soviet government has never accepted that these deformities were caused by Chernobyl. Although the radiation has deteriorated, this terrible disaster will continue to affect Europe for hundreds of years, both physically and mentally. And 26 years later, Chernobyl serves as a warning to the world.